Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrives at episode 596. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn. And this week we're talking about possibly a new series. It was recently announced, or at least it's being reported, that a new Doctor Who spin-off series for younger viewers is in the works for CBC, which is the children's version of BBC, and that the BBC is currently looking for a production partner to create the new series. That's, to me, that when that was announced, everybody was surprised by it. I guess they're surprised because of it feels like Doctor Who's in limbo now, but it seems like it almost feels like a well, duh, why haven't we done this yet anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think to me what's most surprising is the fact that it's not an affiliation with Bad Wolf Productions or any current production house that's running Doctor Who.
Yeah, especially especially since they're saying, you know, the Whoniverse is expanding, you know, and that was coined by Bad Wolf. I mean, BBC Studios owns that concept and they own that branding, but that was Bad Wolf's idea, was, you know, to create a Whoniverse. And so I'm a little surprised. On the other hand, has Bad Wolf done anything in relation to animation at all? I think. Yeah,
I bet they don't have an animation arm, and that's why they can't do it.
I think they're stepping aside so a production house that is, you know, known for that or does that can come in and do it. So I guess that doesn't even really surprise me that they're not involved. And
not knowing a whole lot about Bad Wolf, but I would assume they don't have a preschool arm either.
Which, yeah, certainly.
I don't know if I'd want RTD writing a preschool show.
Yeah, I don't know. He wrote. Yeah, I don't know about preschool.
Maybe he did okay with Sarah Jane, and
yeah, but that's grade school.
Yeah, that's young.
I mean,
think more. That's not preschool.
Think more Spidey and His Amazing Friends or Young Jedi Adventures. That's the level they're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Any idea or thoughts on who the Doctor will be for these animated stories?
Maybe this is how we get Paul McGann back.
I'm there. Throw your hands in the air like you just don't care. Because yeah, bring it on.
I hate to say it, but I have a feeling it's going to be 10th Doctor.
Could be. Wouldn't surprise me.
Or
he does like to do audios.
Or 13.
Yeah.
It's not going to be 12. I can tell you that 100%. Maybe it'd be too confusing for kids, but maybe they'll use different doctors, you know, maybe they'll,
that's possible.
Each story or, you know, block of stories is a different doctor. I don't know. That might be a little too confusing for little ones. I don't know.
Or they'll just cast a whole new one.
I don't see them doing at all. That feels like
maybe Billy.
That feels like, well, maybe. That feels like not Doctor Who. That feels like Doctor Who and the Daleks and Doctor Who, Daleks Invasion Earth, 2150 AD. That feels like too removed. If you have a new Doctor for that, and then because obviously they won't stick to that when the series actually comes back proper with a Doctor, whether it be Billy Piper, whether they do a special or two with Billy Piper and then go on to another Doctor. I just feel like that would be too removed. I think they want to keep some familiarity, and that's why I think it'll be Tennant. I think even little kids know the 10th Doctor, because it's his Doctor is so embedded in the culture over there.
Yeah.
As much as the 4th Doctor was embedded in our Doctor Who culture, you know, when we were younger.
Sounds like it's quite a ways off, though, so who knows?
Yeah, they haven't even partnered with a studio, so...
I find it odd that they announced that they want to make a show, and not that, hey, we're making a show. It's we want to make a show.
Yeah, I think it's because it's so early that they had to do that.
it's entirely possible that it could completely fall apart and not actually come to fruition at this point. Too.
That's what makes me, we chatted about this when we were texting back and forth about this, but that's what makes me, I don't think if there wasn't trouble behind the scenes, they never would have done this. They'd have waited until they found an animation house and then made the announcement when all the contracts were signed. But to do it like this in the public so soon, it seems to me like they're airing their, I don't want to say their grievances, because I don't think it's grievances. I think they're playing politics behind the scenes, because I think they still don't have any further commitments from Disney beyond what this contract was. And they know that Disney still has at least one more Doctor Who adjacent or related thing that they are still committed to. And so I don't think there's been a decision made on where the distribution rights are going to further on. I think there's been some speculation that it's going to move back to HBO, but who knows? But it makes me feel like the BBC or BBC Studios is trying to put, because I mean, you guys, I don't remember if we talked about this or not. The reason Doctor Who ended up at Disney is because Disney wanted the U.S. distribution rights to Bluey. That was a package deal. Disney said, hey, BBC, we'd like to distribute Bluey over here. And BBC said, that would be a good idea. How about we do this? And they pitched the Doctor Who thing. And I don't think Bluey was the 100% reason why Doctor Who came over. I think Disney thought maybe there was a good deal there. But Bluey is a preschool aimed audience. Mm-hmm. And so I think that this is a move on the BBC's part to say, we could be doing the next Bluey. We could be doing the next big preschool thing and waving it under Disney's nose with a chance that Disney might go, well, maybe we want to be a part of that as well. And maybe we do continue to fund the show with distribution right money, because we got to be clear, Disney gives them money, but that money comes for distribution rights and very little else, even though Disney did have some input early on. Basically, Russell T. Davies has done everything contrary to what Disney wanted at this point. But it just makes me feel like they might be just airing this in. It's kind of like that Sony Marvel feud when they were going to drop the Spider-Man thing and not have that universe crossover, and they played that out in the public. It kind of feels like it's not as, contingent in a fight, obvious, mom and dad are fighting kind of thing, but it almost feels like a politically motivated move to say, hey, Disney, we've got another project. Doctor Who's not dead beyond our finished deal with you, if our deal is finished with you. And maybe they're hoping that would make Disney reconsider. I don't know. I may be reading a lot more into it than is actually there, but that's just my presumption.
Well, I don't know it makes sense that they would want to try to pair with Disney for this, because I can't, other than PBS, I can't think of any other real preschool age production companies that are putting quality stuff out there. Well, Disney has multiple shows that are kind of preschool age, and they're kind of the gold standard as far as, that sort of show anyways.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I think Nickelodeon would be another avenue.
Yeah, I guess Nickelodeon would be the other one.
In the U.S.
Patrol and everything.
In the U.S.
anyways.
Now,
yes.
we can speak to the U.S. because, Bluey is actually an Australian-produced show that's backed by the BBC. But
that's a very valid point, and it makes me wonder if the war between land and sea, other than being part of the episode total, has any play in it as well. Like, is Disney hedging their bet and waiting to see what kind of response they get?
That's what I think is happening
off of that one.
I think that's why they haven't made a decision. That's why I feel like they haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet, is they're still waiting on that.
Yeah, and everything that I had heard, not going into the doom and gloom, oh, Disney hates the show, blah, 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 those people. But everything that I had heard from Disney, at least from what appeared to be reputable sources, was that they were pleased with the numbers that Doctor Who was putting up. Now, those numbers had slid over the course of the second season, but that they were initially pleased with the streaming on it.
Well, I think what people fail to realize is that the viewing figures in the UK, they keep talking about how the viewing figures have slid. The viewing figures have slid, they've been sliding since the end of Capaldi's era. And they've just continued to go downward. And that's certainly true. The overnights are different. A lot of that comes into the fact that there's a lot of different variables than there were 10 years ago. But those have gone down, right? But the thing is, when you look at the numbers, and because Disney doesn't release these, so you have to kind of go with the insiders that spout this information, whether they're right or wrong. But it sounds like Doctor Who is performing better than some of Disney's own programs, like as far as viewing numbers. So when you look at Disney's perspective, they're not looking on how well it's doing in the UK on broadcast. They're looking on how it's doing on their platform. And so if those viewing figures are even moderate for them and getting eyes on Disney and getting new subscriptions or people continuing to subscribe, then that looks good. So we don't know, based on the fact, again, that because streaming numbers are well closely guarded for some reason, we don't know. But from some of the quote unquote insiders that know, it sounds like Doctor Who's not the top rated show on there, the most watched show on there, but it's faring better than some of Disney's other stuff. So why would you lose something that you're getting at least moderate numbers on when you've got shows that you're keeping around that are lower? And again, that's insider speak that, who knows if it's really true or not.
But again, Disney is also, from all accounts, The Acolyte got pretty good ratings and they still canceled it.
Yeah. Well, it had eyes on it. It's just, it was getting, the problem with
there
Disney,
were some poor reviews.
Well, the problem with Disney is they don't look at audience score. They look at fan score, and you can't do that because in this day and age, you've got so much toxic fandom that I think there are a lot of people that don't like something. Don't get me wrong. And there can be situations where a lot of people don't like things, but you'll find most of the time people don't say anything if they don't hate it. And so the people that dislike it are just very loud about it. And I think Disney does this. I think HBO was doing this for a while, or Warner Brothers was doing this for a while. I think they're gauging the volume over the actual, like or dislike about something. And I think that I think there's gut reaction over, you look at it, you bring up YouTube and you see all these hate-filled, Doctor Who's terrible now, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what rises to the top, but that's not everybody's opinion either. And
they said it as clickbait as well.
Yeah. But I think that's what Disney is seeing, engaging sometimes. And I think that's what happened with The Acolyte. Because it had a lot of viewership, but it didn't get continued because there were a lot of fanboys that didn't like it.
Well, and there's another element too, where Tony Gilroy just got interviewed with Andor season 2 wrapping up, and he said the powers that be at Disney essentially told him there's no money here. The streaming bubble has burst, and we're going to make do with what you got, and then that'll be the end of it.
And that is true.
And so, if that's even remotely true, one would have to think that signing a deal for distribution of Doctor Who and throwing some money at the BBC is vastly cheaper than
producing it themselves.
Producing
your own show. Yeah.
Your own show.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And if you're getting any kind of remote numbers off of that would have to be a better deal. I just don't understand why they're waiting so long to decide whether or not to continue with it. And as far as the viewing figures, as far as the viewing figures over in the UK, yes, they've been sliding. But what nobody seems to take into account, and I don't understand this, whether it's a good report or a bad report about the viewing numbers. The viewing numbers for Doctor Who have always been all over the place. They were kind of here in the third Doctor's era, and then the fourth Doctor came along and they skyrocketed, and then they slid, and then they tanked, and then the new show started, and they were here, and they were good, and then they kind of went down, and then they went up, and then they went down, and then they went down some more.
Well, that's
the numbers are different between
but to them that's unfair though, Sean, because that's apples to oranges. I think if you start in 2005 and look at the numbers and how they scaled up and down then that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at the 1980s. They're not looking at that television
as a longer trend. Even if you just take from 2005 to now, is doing the same thing that the numbers did from 1963 to 89.
Right.
It's the same curve, and it doesn't indicate that the show's quality has dropped or that people aren't watching. What kind of span of time are we talking about here? 20 years. TV is different.
Yeah.
The world is a vastly different place than it was when Eccleston first graced our screens.
That's what I was going to bring up too, is the numbers may be sliding, but how is it doing compared to other shows? Like, there was a once upon a time where the numbers Doctor Who's pulling now would mean instant cancellation on NBC.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
But now it's considered a success.
Yeah,
so it's all more, you can't look at the show's past numbers. You got to look at it compared to other TV shows to see how they're doing and where it's sitting in viewing numbers, because there's so much more stuff to look at now.
I think the other thing you have to consider is we've changed how the networks are very much still in that idea that there is event television and people sit down on a Saturday night to watch the same show. That doesn't happen anymore. We're in an era where it's video on demand, so people aren't going to sit down in front of their television at 6:00 in the evening on a Sunday to watch Doctor Who when they know they can go, to a football game, or they can go to the pub, or they can do whatever and watch Doctor Who later. That's the world we live in. And I think
some of us are so busy we work it in whenever we can get to
right.
it.
And so I think that, and American television is become that way too. And so I think once they figure out how to gauge viewing on a, and I think maybe that's why viewing figures on streaming are maybe held close to the chest, because nobody wants to reveal how they're looking at them. But I think once you realize that those numbers, the kind of numbers we used to get, are invalid now because people are watching this show on a different basis.
Exactly.
I'm really hoping Disney is not waiting for the numbers for the war between the land and the sea to make a decision, because in my opinion, I'm looking forward to the spinoff, but the general public may not be quite as on board with the spinoffs. They don't tend to, from what I remember, they don't tend to get as many eyes on them as the main show proper does. So to do a basis off of, is the show itself going to continue on Disney Plus because of the spinoff? I don't know if that's the smartest way to decide that.
This is what's going to be, and I'll be frustrated, as this will be an unfair deal here, is you watch in the coming months, if you see Disney advertising this show that's coming out, The War in the Land of the Sea, you'll know that they are aware, they are wholly aware that this is a Doctor Who adjacent show that perhaps only fans will watch. And they're going to push this, and they're going to put advertisements out there because they want to get their investment. They want to get eyes on it, and they want to get their investment worth their investment. But what's really, really kind of stupid, or what I don't like about that is, did you see any advertising for Doctor Who season 1 or 2 outside of, our usual channels? Did you see them pushing it? Did you watch a YouTube video where you saw an ad for Doctor Who? Did you watch?
I did, actually.
Were you on, or did you? Were you on something that showed, because there were very few and far between ads for Doctor Who, and Disney acted like they didn't even care about the show. I mean, for the longest time, the specials were up there at the top. Even when the new series was running, the specials are up there because you could put David Tennant's face up there. And the specials never on the splash screens were said their actual title. It was like Special 1, Special 2,
Special 2.
They didn't care. They didn't market Doctor Who as well as they could have.
No, they definitely did not market as well. But I saw promos for it leading up to season 2. However, my mother didn't and was like, "Whoa, the show's back!"
Exactly. And I didn't see any, and maybe they realized they needed to get season 2 in front of more eyes too. I don't know. Maybe that's why they did do season 2.
I remember seeing some, ahead of season 2. I can't remember on season 1 or not.
Now that you say that, I know I saw advertising for it, but that was for the specials and season 1 specifically. I don't know that I saw much in the way of just, other than the little banner saying new season coming, kind of thing or whatnot. I other than through Disney Plus itself or
don't get me wrong,
through one of our channels.
I saw advertising for Doctor Who, but it was always connected to British stuff that I watch, or it was never. I never saw it pushed in front of American audiences the way that it should have been.
Yeah, you're right.
But we'll see if that changes with the war between them knowing that that's a little even more niche than the series proper. If that's gonna do it for this time, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.